everybody, and welcome to another episode of Veterans Point of View. I am your host, Mario. Now, a couple of things I wanted to get off my chest, I guess. Not really consider this a rant podcast. Mostly it's just to really talk about what's really been going on in society and how we can. I think if anything, we should be able to do certain things to improve the lives of our veterans. I honestly think that in most cases, society does not really care about veterans. And I'm not going to probably get in a lot of trouble for saying that, but let's stop and think about it. The only time people care about veterans and what they're all about is during a war or during an election season. And that's really the only time I ever see somebody truly caring about veterans. So, am I wrong for saying what I'm saying? In most cases, I would probably say that a lot of my audience would agree with what I'm saying. What I would tell you is how do we change that gap? How do we change the gap where society starts really caring about what our veterans are all about and what they bring to the table and how we can really help them out? That's really one of the questions that I have for a lot of you in the audience is what is it that we're doing to improve the life of our veterans? You know, there shouldn't be any veterans living in the streets. There should never be any veterans dying because they're not getting medical help that they need. There should not be any veterans that are always in need and not being able to feel like they can transition back into society. And that to me is a tragedy. It is a tragedy that we continue to see. And because let's stop and think about it. And I'm going to be very controversial with what I'm saying. We are not like the LGBTQ community where everybody's always talking, everybody's always complaining, everybody's always saying that they're not being counted and they're not being cared for. In most cases, most veterans are never going to say that because they're not the type that's going to go out there and tell you that they need help. Most of our veterans are just going to mind their business and do what they need to do and either find a way to provide for themselves and provide for their families, or in some cases, even commit suicide. And that in itself, ladies and gentlemen, is a tragedy. It is something that we must improve, you know, and I really feel that that is one aspect that it needs to be improved. The fact that we've had 22 veterans kill themselves every day since the start of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. I would go back to Enduring Freedom because Enduring Freedom was a lot earlier than Iraqi Freedom. But ever since then, we've seen numbers that are skyrocketing. And no matter what the media says or does, no matter what they do, it seems to me like society does not really care. Why is that? Let's stop and think about it. How many of our friends that you know have relatives that are veterans? Very few. And for example, I'll tell you. I'll give you guys one example. Recently, my daughter graduated from Cal State Bakersfield. I live in Bakersfield, California, and as we're doing the graduation ceremony, there must have been close to 500 or 600 people in attendance. And they were discussing veterans that had graduated from Cal State Bakersfield and gotten their bachelor's degree. And that's great, and then they were all recognized. They were recognized, they stood up And there was very few of them. There was about 600 kids, no, almost 700 kids that were in that were graduating, and maybe 10 or 15 have served. Stop and think about that. It's 15 out of 700 kids. That is crazy. And what even made me even kind of dumbfounded me the most is that they started asking to recognize those that were on the audience. And they asked, if you have served, could you please stand up and be recognized? Of course, I stood up. Of course, you know. And there was probably 8 people that stood up. 8 people out of about 700 or 800 people that were attending that graduation. That is sad, people. And I'm just throwing those numbers out there so that you guys can really understand where I'm coming from. Is that there is a very, very, very small portion of our population that serves. So whenever a veteran dies, to them, it doesn't really affect them because they don't know that many people that have served. They don't know that many people that are veterans. To them, it's like, well, you know, that's unfortunate, you know, and that's about as far as that goes. But how many of them would truly care if that was their uncle, that was their father, that was their brother or their sister, you know, or their mom? And those are things that I think about a lot, and I wonder, why is it that our veterans are so mistreated? Why is it that they are not really cared for? When we care more about immigrants than we do the people that have been providing us our freedoms, that is a tragedy in itself, ladies and gentlemen. That is a huge tragedy, and it's a huge insult to many of our veterans. Not too long ago, there was a story, I think it was in LA, where there was an influx of migrants that were coming in. And the city of LA decided to pretty much take a bunch of homeless veterans that were living in hotels and kick them out while they put illegal immigrants in those motel rooms. And that is just one example of the kind of nonsense that I've been seeing and how they treat veterans and such. Let's stop and think about it. You know, we also have some educators out there that are not the greatest either. And I'm not saying that all teachers are bad teachers, but I don't know if you guys recall, there was a teacher that was also in the Southern California area. I don't remember his name. And he was saying that how is it that we can't kill a bunch of guys in sandals? How is it that we have so many people that are dying and that somehow our veterans are not that smart? And of course, everybody just started correcting this guy, and it made him look like a freaking idiot, because they got to stop and think about it. There's quite a few veterans that are very smart. And there's even guys that in my unit that really had no business being in an infantry unit, man. Because, you know, you stop and think about it. Infantry unit, they're not really considered the most educated, you know, smartest people in the world, you know. We are always considered some of the less educated, less talented people in the military, and that's the reason why we do the toughest job. But if they only knew, right? So we kind of broke it down, and we started really thinking about it, and we started thinking about who in our unit is not really that educated. Well, in order for you to go in the military, you got to have a high school diploma in order for you to go in the military. That's one of the basic requirements that they ask of you. When you get to a certain level, especially in the enlisted side, you have to, you know, you have to have an associate's or higher, and is because the educational credits are, some of the things that they look at is they're trying to promote people. And of course, civilians don't understand that. They don't understand that many of our officers are all basically have 60 units of college credits or higher. They might even have a bachelor's degree or even a master's degree. So this guy is completely freaking idiot. He does not understand how things really run in Afghanistan and the complexity of that territory and those people. But yet he decided to call every veteran a dumbass, an idiot, or whatever the case. It was funny. I had a reporter come and ask me, and he asked me like, so could you tell us a little bit about your educational background? And you should have seen her face when I told her that I had a master's degree. And, those are the kind of things that we continue to be insulted all the time. I'm just throwing these examples, guys, just so that you guys can understand the kind of stuff that we've been noticing with our veterans. And the reason why veterans are starting to become very sour, they're starting to become very direct and in many cases aggressive. And you really stop and think about it. It just takes one of those veterans to really go off on somebody. Let's say they go off on an illegal immigrant, or let's say they go off on somebody who's insulting them. And the repercussions that go along with that. But do you stop and think about what you've done and what could have done to prevent it? And those are the things that, in many cases, a lot of civilians don't think about. You got to understand that the purpose of the military is to win wars. That is our job. Our job is to win wars. And within that military, you have a bunch of warriors. And all these warriors are taught to kill. All these warriors are taught to do whatever they need to do for God and country, right? But in many cases in our great society, we have a tendency of thinking that, oh, you know what? These people are vigilantes, or they are not the type of people that we need to be supporting. You basically gave us the tools to kill, and then if for some reason I'm being offended or you're taking advantage of me, and I strike back, I'm the vigilante? Doesn't that sound crazy to you guys? And this is the kind of stuff that I continue to see, guys. And it makes me, it makes a lot of veterans that I know of very bitter. It makes us really wonder what is next. What are some of the things that they're trying to do? They're already trying to take our disability ratings and our pensions. If for some reason you make a certain amount of money, I'm sure you guys heard about that recommendation from the Congress Budget Office or whatever they're called, and how they're trying to tell us that if for some reason you make over $130,000, that they're going to take your benefits away if you retired or you have disability. Who the hell are you to tell us what we need to be doing with our money? Or if for some reason I was able to be successful once I got out of the military and got my education and used the benefits that you gave me to become successful, all of a sudden I'm a bad person because I make too much money? I'm just wondering what's next, guys. I wonder what is next and how far the left is going to continue to go. And I apologize if I'm making this to be a political thing, but let's stop and face it, guys. I know that in many cases we have people in the right wing that are not that great either. But we also have I noticed that there's more opposition about veterans on the left side of the house. And I hate to throw the politics in all this, but honestly, there's too much history and there's too much evidence that shows this kind of stuff. But people love their freedoms. They love their freedoms. They love that they can go wherever they want to go. They don't have a checkpoint. They don't have to go from state to state and have to go through a checkpoint. They love the fact that they can speak their mind and say whatever you want to say. They love to be able to spend their money however they want without anybody telling them how to live their life. Guess what? All those freedoms that you truly love were not free. Those were all given to you by my brothers and sisters that died, that pillaged, that lost arms, that did all these things so that you could have the things that you have right now. And I'll be honest with you, you guys, I think a lot of you guys know that the history of the United States is not a pristine history. It has its bad and it has its good. There's always going to be prejudices. There's always going to be inequality in certain aspects. But in many cases, for as bad as our society is, it's always a lot better than most other countries, guys. And I really get upset when I see a lot of people that don't appreciate their freedoms. They don't appreciate how simple things that they have, that in most cases people that I visited when I was overseas didn't have. I was in Saudi Arabia, I was in Kuwait, I was in Iraq. I've seen some really tragic stuff. I've seen some people not have the basic necessities like running water, or to be able to drive themselves from place to place, or to even have a highway that they can go to that's decent, that doesn't have a bunch of holes in it. And those are things that we take for granted here. You take for granted that you have electricity every day, you have running water, you have pretty much a good working home wherever you're at. Even the most messed up home in America is a lot better than most of the huts that I saw in Iraq. And I think people have really not stopped and think about their freedoms and how good they have it. Which leads me back to this whole thing about suicide. Suicide is a huge deal within our community. It's always been a huge deal. And what are some of the things that are contributing to this aspect of it? I would tell you that the things that always contribute to it is the fact that many of our veterans have a hard time transitioning, have a hard time understanding how society works and how selfish it is and how backstabbing it is. And I mean, let's face it, we all have blue falcons in the military. We all had some people that are not the greatest in the military, but to a certain point, that small percentage is nothing like it is in the civilian world. The civilian world is very cutthroat. There's really no honor in anything that they do. And for me, really, it's been really hard for me to understand it once as I transition out of the military and, working in the civilian world. I can tell you that in most cases, most civilians, for the majority, I'm not saying all, but majority of them really are there just to do a job to the best, to the best of their abilities. But in most cases, their best is probably our worst. We have a tendency of paying attention to detail. We have a tendency of taking, pride in what we do. And many civilians don't do that. Many ways they love to be recognized for everything, which is another thing that drives me insane. you go to LinkedIn and you see all these people. Oh my God, look, I got my certificate and blah, blah, blah. And then, oh my God, good job, Chase. Good job on getting that certificate done. I'm like, who cares? I have over freaking 20 medals in my wall. I don't remember ever going on LinkedIn and saying, oh, today I got a commendation medal for doing my job. Great. Or I got my meritorious service medal for 20 some years of service. No, I don't care about that. Don't get me wrong. I do care. I'm appreciative of the fact that I received awards and people recognize me for my hard work. But I'm the type that's going to gloat about it or just tell everybody, oh, look at me. Look how great I am. And in most cases, majority of the people that I know are not that same way. They're not that way. And most veterans they hate people like that, because we're not meant to do that. You're supposed to do your job and shut up and drive on. That's your job, and in most cases, the way civilians think is I just find it, I find it very funny, actually. At the same time, very tragic. All at once, But, you stop and think about it. Why is it that so many of our veterans are dying? Because in reality, society has not brought them back in. We don't have that tribal mentality. You stop and think about us, let's use a country as an example. Let's use Israel. In Israel, every man that's able to serve will serve in the military. They have a minimum of 2 years of service that they have to do to their country. And if you don't, you go to jail. Pretty simple. But in many cases, many of these Israeli soldiers or military go through some really horrific stuff, because you got to stop and think about it. The West Bank and all those areas down there, it's not pretty. It's a constant struggle with them. They're getting mortars lobbed, they're getting all kinds of things going. And you look at this country like Israel, who's been in war pretty much throughout their existence. There's very few times where Israel has not had a bombing or something going on, it's been a constant thing with them and the Palestinians, right? And I feel bad for both. I really do, because the fact that, this is holy land and Palestinians feel like they got the short end of the stick. I get it, man. It's a huge mess. And I wish that there was a better way that could be fixed. At this point, I don't see that being ever fixed. But going back to my point is that pretty much everybody in Israel serves. And somehow, even though through the atrocities of war, they don't have the problems of suicide. They don't have these issues that we have in the military in the U.S. And the only way that I can think as to why that is the fact that they all think like a tribe. So if you're part of a tribe and you come back to your tribe, everybody helps you out. Everybody brings you in. Everybody makes you feel like you're wanted, and they believe in you, and they make you feel better. And in many cases, it kind of dissipates any chance of them ever thinking about committing suicide. You don't have the suicide rates like that in Israel. And I really feel that if for some reason our society would have that tribal mentality, and every transition veteran would just get some sort of loving from people and be like, hey man, we're with you. We wanna help you. You need to find a job, you need resume help, you need this. Make them feel wanted like they were in the military. Because if you stop and think about it, most of us that were in the military, we miss it. we miss the structure. We miss the certain aspects of military life. But what you miss the most is that connection, that human connection that you have with your fellow soldier, right? That connection, because you guys both been through the same situations, same ordeals, sometimes one more than the other. But the fact that we all know what we've been through, we help each other out, and you're able to survive. Someone who understands your issues and what you've been through, and you know that connection is always there. Yeah, we understand that there's times where we talk a lot of smack because of the branch that we serve or stuff like that. But in most cases, this is just all good nature and good fun. But you know, there's always that respect factor that comes along with it. One thing you guys got to understand about this rant, guys, is like, I'm not doing this to, somehow get some sort of promotion out of this or anything like that. I'm just telling you guys that this is a major issue, man. And if we don't take care of this, if we don't start respecting our veterans and not really taking our freedoms for granted, we're going to have some serious issues. I understand that there's a lack of understanding of what veterans do. I mean, obviously, this is something that we can improve on. This is something we can definitely make better and improve on it. But same aspect, though, I think that, because Americans have been so used to their freedoms and not really having to go through the ordeals that they've been through, it's hard for them to really respect us, guys. I think it comes down to us. It comes down to us being more vocal, talking about it, being able to discuss it with the communities. Because in reality, if you stop and think about it, majority of veterans are not very vocal. One, because we already have a stereotype that we're some crazy lunatic person. But at the same time, I still think that, we're a lot smarter than that. We just have to be tactically proficient in how we speak and be able to tell others about our ordeals, about the issues that we deal with on an everyday basis, and how they can better accept us in society. So I know this is more of a rant, guys, but in reality, it's really meant for you guys to just have an open mind to what I'm telling you. I'm just speaking to you as a lonely veteran here who has seen a lot of these issues and has become extremely frustrated by them. So I hope that you guys understand that in many ways, I'm not trying to be hostile in any kind of way. I am just merely speaking facts and merely speaking examples of what I've seen and things that need to improve. When we start, giving preferences to others that have not really deserved or earned them, it's a big slap in the face for a lot of us. And it's starting to get to a point that you're going to see people become even more aggressive. And in some cases, downright violent. So I'm hoping that it doesn't get to that point. I'm hoping that that we somehow can figure things out. But I also feel that society needs to start opening their eyes about veterans and veterans issues that we have going on. Because if it wasn't for us, you would not have your 9-to-5 job. You would not have the things that you have. And I think that's something that needs to be put in perspective. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to having another episode with you guys. Hopefully, I'll be doing an episode with another veteran, and we can discuss some of the experiences that they've been through. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. Like always, God bless you. God bless the United States of America. And I'm out.